Welcome to Your Number Man, where we share financial strategies, business insights, and inspiring stories to help you navigate a successful business. I am your host, Johan, and my goal is to help you achieve a bigger life in business. So today we are going to dive into pricing. So those of you who have followed my podcast from the start will remember that I had an episode in season 1 on costing and pricing, where I gave a bit of a description on a few pricing strategies such as cost plus pricing, value-based pricing, and dynamic pricing. It might be good to go have another listen to it. That one was on the 20th of May 24. But today's probably going to be a little bit more technical. We're going to dig into cost plus pricing and then how it can evolve into value-based pricing. Over my last 30 years in business, I've encountered a lot of problems with businesses. They ranged from low sales, low margins, cash flow challenges, and then to other non-financial issues such as staff retention and poor efficiencies. And very interestingly, most of the time, these problems related back to the pricing methods my customers used. I believe that your products and the price you sell them at is the backbone of every business. It is such a pivotal part of a business success that I think it would be good to have another episode on it. Pricing is a big topic with a lot of nuances and models. It's almost worth doing a total series about it, which I might even decide to do it one day. But let's get into today's discussion. So let's recap. Where did pricing come from? Now, pricing is older than written human history. About 12,000 years ago, the hunter-gatherer lifestyles made way to more permanent settlements and farming communities. People started bartering goods and trades for other available commodities. So the economies of these communities evolved organically into trades and markets. So the ancient primitive trades between people had to ensure that both parties were happy with the transfer of goods. When one party could not find something useful to trade, the communities invented forms of currencies like shells, salt, metal, silver, and then gold. And that lay the basis for a unified systems developed into a very complex pricing as we know it today. My understanding of the definition of price is an amount agreed between a seller and a buyer. But why is pricing so important? Pricing is crucial. It drives your sales, it drives your margins, it drives your cash flow. Technically, sales drives your business. So your business can only operate on the long term if it's selling products and services at the right price and at the right price that your customers are comfortable to pay for it. Pricing is a science, but I would almost say pricing is more than a science. I reckon it's very close to an art. Correct pricing is priceless and extremely powerful. So how do we make sure our pricing is correct? Pricing is a really nuanced business activity, and there could be countless models. But I believe the following 4 steps are crucial to guarantee your pricing is on the right track. The first one, understand your costings. Be 100% of each dollar that goes into your company. What is it for? Where does it reflect on your profit and loss or balance sheet? And how is it going to create value? Then you also got to work out what would a cost plus pricing model look like. In step 3, you got to research your market and you're going to work out how you would be able to integrate your cost plus model with a value-based model to ensure that competitive pricing decisions can help you to support your vision and your goals of your business. You got to actually follow through on your value-based model to work on strategies and innovative models to position yourself as a market leader and a price maker to gain a distinctive edge over your competitors. I've talked a lot about costings in my podcast. You have to understand your costings. I talked about breaking down your cost structures in business. You get your variable cost and then you get your direct variable cost. are your direct costs related to what's actually going into your product or service that you sell. So those would be things like direct inputs, direct labor, your direct freight, or your logistical costs, packaging, and contractors if you're operating as a tradie. Then obviously you've got fixed costs, and they are costs not directly affected by production levels. I just need to state, it's important that you've got to be 100% certain of your costs in your business before you even trying to attempt to work on a pricing strategy. There is a lot of guesswork involved, and a lot of people say, I want to sell a pair of socks and I'm going to see what it costs on Facebook Marketplace and what the retail shop next door is going to pay. What is the Salvos charging for socks these days? And then you get an idea, a price that you want to put in the market. It might work if you've got an odd pair of socks or old shoes or whatever you want to sell, or an old barbecue on Marketplace. But to be scientific about it, we got to understand our costings. So now we got to build some sort of cost plus model. I would say that is the basis that we want to work from. So first of all, we're going to do a cost plus pricing model, and it's actually quite straightforward. It involves calculating the actual cost of a product and adding a margin to it to ensure profitability. So let's look at a simple scenario. Let's say you have a shoe business. You're only producing one product, a very high-end, high-quality, leather, handcrafted, outdoor hiking boot. And it comes with all the bells and whistles, that it's rugged, it's got warranties, weatherproof, and it can go wherever you want to go. All right, you got that picture in your mind now. This company we're going to call, obviously, that's just me sitting, thought about a name quickly, Outdoor Soul Bliss. Yeah, all right, it might work or might not, but all right, let's stick with that name for now. You've worked very hard, you've done your numbers, you've checked your suppliers, you've checked your labor cost, and you eventually came up with a cost that you are quite comfortable is the actual cost to make one pair of boots. And you came up with $65. And it included labor of $25, for instance, interiors of $35, bill of freight of about $2 per pair of boots, and packaging of about $3. So that's $65. So now we got to add a margin to it. But very important, you can't just add a margin, because we actually probably get confused between markup and margin. It's two different things. I have seen, and we still see it every day in the business world, how dangerous it is when people get confused between what is a markup and what is a margin. But we'll have to put a margin on top of it eventually. We'll put a markup on it, but we convert it back to a margin. So just to explain quickly about the confusing part between markup and margin, let's take a product for $100, and then you say you want to put a markup of 50% on top of that. So it's $100 plus $50, and you got a price of $150. But what if we want a margin of 50%? Basically, it means that you take the sales price and times it by 50%, and that will give you the gross profit. Now, here's the thing. If we have the sales price of $150, which worked out through the markup, and the margin is 50%, the gross profit is $75. That means our cost is also $75, but we know our cost is $100. I'm getting a bit confusing, but just trying to explain the difference. If we are going to use cost plus pricing, we'll get confused and our business is going to take a serious nosedive. I don't want to get too hung up on these scenarios, but be aware there's a big difference there. Okay. Let's move back to my Soul Bliss boot company. So I've done my research of this company, and I said, all right, looks like we can get about a 38 to a 45% gross profit margin. So let's be optimistic and say, no, we can get a 45 margin. So we got to work back from our cost of $65, but we can't just attach the margin to it, because it will pump out something else. We got to use a markup. So how do we put a markup on top if we got a gross profit margin of 45%? Easy. The formula is your margin percentage over 1 minus your margin percentage. Now, don't worry. There are templates available for this specific episode, and you'll find links on the footnote. So just click on there and then I'll flick those through to you. But anyway, in short, formula for margin is margin on top over 1 minus your margin percentage. And that's 45% over 1 minus 45%. And eventually it will come to 81.82%. You can work it out for yourself later. We've got 81.82% as a markup, and that translates back to a margin of 45%. So all we got to do is we add that markup onto our cost of 65. And that means we'll eventually get a markup then of 53.18 cents on 65. And that will give us a price of $118.18. I'm talking a little bit numbers. Don't get too confused and too hung up about it. You can always work through a template later or just get your calculator out. My price is 118. I know my cost is 65. I take my cost from my price. I came back to my gross profit of 53.18, which is equal to my markup. I divide that over my price and it comes to 45%. That's the 45% margin. Now, I'm almost done. We know now that we got a price of 118. So let's make sure that this price is viable. And for that, we're going to need our overheads. We also worked out our overhead costs, and it came to $155,000 for the year. And it includes admin and wages management, a bit of machinery and tech tools, plant and equipment, rent, and a bit of marketing costs, subscription costs, and all those little nuts and bolts. All right, so it's $155,000. Now you take your $155,000 and divide it over your gross profit margin to get your break even. We first want to see what is the viability here. So you got your break even of $344,444. Now what we do is we take that number of the break even and we divide it by the amount or the price that we just worked out of $118. And the amount of pair of boots that we want to sell is 2,950. So can we break in? Breaking even is that point where you're not making a profit or a loss. Okay, we can make it easy. But the next question is, do we want to make a profit? Yeah, sure. Of course we want to make a profit. That's why we're here in business. Let's have a look. What kind of profit is the industry making in our area? We've done a little bit of research and we see, okay, manufacturing, shoe manufacturing, clothing manufacturing, fashion, apparel, outdoor, all that kind of stuff. Put it through the mixer and it comes up with about something between 11 and 15% net profit. Now, keep in mind, I'm talking net profit. We want to do a net profit of 15%. How do we get it back to that amount if we want to make 15%? Easy. I'm going to put my templates available for you. So the formula to get what amount of sales you got to make by having your overhead expenditure, your gross profit margin, and net profit margin is pretty easy. So what you'll do is you'll take your over and divide it over gross profit margin of 45% minus your net profit value of 15%. So that means you take your overheads and you divide it over 30% technically, and that will punch out a total sales of 516,667. That is the dollar value in sales that we want to make if we want to make a 15% net profit. How many units do we need to sell to make that amount of money? You take your total sale amount and you divide it by the price of 118, and then the amount of pairs that we need to sell in 1 year to make a profit of 15% is 4,372 pairs of boots. Can we do it? Yep, easy, no worries. We've got a few skilled people in the factory. We got good material. We got our system sorted out. Can we sell it? Yeah, sure, we'd sell it. We've got our distribution network. We got our retailers, and that is no problem at all. So we say, okay, cool. And based on this, then at that price, we will be able to make $77,500 profit, which is 15% on your total sales of $516,000. That is our pricing for now. We'll probably sell it to retailers, distributors, and dealers at that price, but they still got to put their markup and their margins on top of it. And in order to become a price maker and not a price taker, it's in our power to tell the market what our recommended retail price would be. So we actually got to work it out for our dealers and our retailers. So we look at the dealers, the retailers, what is the average margin? Sometimes we're not going to use distributors. Sometimes we're not going to use dealers. We might in the future look at online sales, and that's going to cut out the middlemen. At this stage, let's take a margin of about 40%. And again, using my formula, a 40% margin comes back to a markup of 66.7%. So that means we got a markup from the $118 that we've established as a price. We got to mark it up by another $78 or $79 to come to recommended retail price. And that price then is $197. Okay, but we also got to keep GST into consideration. Now, there's a few people that listen to my show in other countries as well. I know in America they got sales tax, but it's different from state to state. In Australia, it's 10%, so we're going to add that on top. We are putting out this product to our customers at $216.67, and that is based on a cost plus margin. If you got all your numbers and formulas right and you got all your margins, no problem. If you do it right, you make sure of your cost, there's no way you'll ever go broke. On paper, you will never go broke. The problem is if you're going to compete just on a cost plus model, you'll become involved in price wars and you're never really going to be able to become a price maker or confidently establish your own point of difference to have the edge over your competition. And that is why, very importantly, we got to look at value-based pricing as well. The market forces are extremely complex, and you have to look beyond the numbers of conventional cost-plus models to make sure that you got a sustainable long-term profit. This exercise that I've been talking about for the last 20 minutes is definitely not in vain. We got to understand that basics to move into a value-based system as well. So the cost-plus gave us a good base. But now let's look at your value-based pricing. Remember I mentioned at the start, price is the value that customers are willing to sacrifice to obtain a product or a service. It's what they are willing to pay to better their lives and add value to their businesses. In essence, a value-based pricing addresses those needs and those aspirations, and it all has to do with how you brand your product. Obviously, there is a lot of things involved, how you brand your product, but also do with your quality, your market, your warranties, your availability. Now, a lot of business owners are embracing a very effective value-based models, and they're really focused how their service or product they deliver is actually a tool to solve people's problem, and it can help customers reaching their ideals. What we got to remember as business people is that customers buy value, they don't buy price. So understanding what value our product or services offers and how that resonates with our target audience is very critical for setting prices that reflects what our customers are willing to pay. So we have to consider the unique benefits of our products, whether it's quality, convenience, or innovation, and how these align with our market's priorities. So aligning our pricing with our value proposition enable us to set prices that reflect our product's worth of value to them and making sure that there's a reasonable profit for ourselves as well. Our choice of pricing models should align with both our brand positioning and market demand. For instance, premium brands benefit from value-based pricing, while budget-friendly brands might leverage competitive pricing to attract price-sensitive customers. It's a good idea to understand where our market is. Now, if you are competing on price, it doesn't mean that you're just a price taker, because there's still a strategy behind it. Pricing is a very complex subject. That's why a lot of businesses fail and a lot of businesses thrive beyond comprehension, having a good pricing. And I'm going to get to a very good example very soon. So we know for a fact that we got a very high value product. It's leather, it's a robust boot. We're selling it to a specific audience, but it's going to take a lot of time and money to get a specific branding right. We might be best off to use a cost plus model as a base and then try and incorporate it with a value-based model as time goes on and we evolve this model and the branding. So one strategy could be to price the original recommended retail price and then price it down with special discounts to get a better market penetration from the start. There's a lot of options, but branding takes time and a lot of money as well. Companies like BMW and Audi invested billions to make sure that their brands speak a certain way to their target market. Toyota has obviously also been around positioning themselves securely in their market, but they communicate to a different market. Take a Camry, for instance. It's probably got the same features as a BMW, but it's half the price. And there's nothing wrong with a Toyota Camry. It will take you from one place to another. It's safe, it's economical, but no, it's not going to make you feel like James Bond, I reckon. But Toyota, they don't care. It's not their target market, and they are just as much a price maker as BMW or Audi. The thing is, find your point of difference, communicate it, be confident your pricing model will work, and you will be in control. It sounds very easy to say that and to actually get it right. But look at our boots. It might not make people feel like James Bond, but it could make them feel like Bear Grylls, for that matter. So what I'm saying is, let's not move away from cost plus altogether. It's a good base. We got to find that unique selling proposition, and that will open a lot of new and innovative opportunities and new pricing models. It could be something totally out of the blue, something that nobody ever heard about and never thought about. Now, saying that, let's look at what happened to Netflix. Now, Netflix was originally founded in 1997. It was an online DVD rental service where customers could rent DVDs through a website, and they received the DVDs via mail, and that's snail mail. It's not streaming. And they had an option to purchase the movies as well. If they like the movie, they can so build up the DVD collection through Netflix. But originally, it's a renting system. So in 1999, Netflix transitioned from a paper rental model to a subscription-based model. And that means they charge their customers a monthly fee, and their customers could rent an unlimited amount of DVDs without due dates or late fees. This model allowed customers to have a queue of DVDs to be mailed to them as soon as previous ones were returned. And then, as technology evolved and Netflix kept on working on their model, in 2007, they introduced the streaming service as we know today, allowing subscribers to watch movies and TV shows instantly over the internet. This was a massive pivotal point, and consumers around the world started gravitating towards on-demand entertainment. Now, I don't think this would have happened if Netflix was just stuck on a cost-based model and never explored any ways to find better value options for their customers. In 2013, Netflix began to produce its own content and expanded their service offerings to 190 countries. That's what they reached today, in 190 countries. That is crazy. So what worked? It's the model, it's convenience, accessible. It eliminated pain points and late fees. It gave customers control over the entertainment experience and fostered brand loyalty. Keep the cost in mind, but moving into a value-based system and then eventually came up with an idea nobody ever thought about. I guess, their biggest competitor back in 1997 was Blockbusters. And Blockbusters probably laughed at the Netflix people and said, they are crazy. That will never work. Unfortunately, the opposite happened. Netflix went on to make, what did they make last year? $38 billion. And they made a profit of $8 billion on that. That's 21%. And Blockbusters, where are they? They've got one store left in Oklahoma somewhere. And that store is only, has branded itself now as serving a market involved in vintage classical movies. But, okay, what about us? What about our business? What about our Outdoor Soul Bliss Incorporated? How are we going to move into a value-based model and eventually be able to innovate new models for our products? Now, that's a very good question, but impossible to answer. I don't have a crystal ball. But what I tell my clients is find your point of difference and make sure you are confident with your market and know how to communicate with them. It might also pay you to engage a brand specialist. And then you're going to ask, how the hell I'm going to pay for a brand specialist? I'm good at numbers, and I'm going to show you how you're going to be able to pay for a brand specialist. So let's say your company has always worked on a cost-plus basis, all right? Let's go back to the boot company. We've got our profit and loss worked out here. Based on the figures, we know our cost to make one pair of boots is $65. We've worked out our total sales to be $516,000. Our gross profit is 45%, the overheads is $155,000, and our profit for the year is $77,500. Now, what if we are competing on price? That means we have to give discounts throughout the year and really trying to boost our sales. Sometimes we give big discounts, sometimes we don't give any discounts, and sometimes we score a bit by putting stuff online and cut out some of the dealers. Let's say we give about 10% of our margin to discounts. That brings it down to $465,000 that our income would be, as opposed to $516,000. But our direct cost still stays the same. Our overhead still stays the same. And eventually we are making $50,000 less profit in a year. So we would have made $77,000 profit. Now we're only making $25,000 profit. So that's $50,000 in difference by competing on price and giving discounts away and not 100% sure where we are in the market. Now let's take half of that amount of money that we've lost or would have lose, and we say we take $25,000 and we invest that into branding. We get a top branding specialist, and that specialist will help us to really position our brand, really put systems in place and marketing activities to really boost and communicate our unique selling proposition to the market. That won't be such a bad outcome. So perhaps we can still get our price then. So instead of making $25,000 profit, we might have made $50,000 profit if we subtract the cost of the branding person or the branding system. That is an investment. It will perhaps gear us for future ways to look at modeling, for future ways to look at markets. It will create more ideas for product development. So it's not just competing on a price basis. If we're not sure about our market, it's likely that we might end up as blockbusters as opposed to Netflix. All right, that is a lot said about pricing, cost-based pricing, value-based pricing. It's good concepts. It's really very complex and nuanced, but let's think about some pitfalls to avoid. Obviously, one would be underpricing. If we underprice our products, sometimes it's done to attract customers. Now, underpricing can hurt profitability, and it's also a way that might signal a low value to customers. Look, for instance, the wine industry. If you're going to take a girl on a date or you're going to invite somebody over for dinner, you will not buy a bottle of wine for under $20 perhaps. Pricing could also be one of the pitfalls. If you set prices too high without delivering adequate value, you're going to lose customers. And we shouldn't ignore customer feedback. We can't really speak to that customer on the floor, but there are ways. And I had Trevor Taylor on my show a few weeks ago where he spoke about loyalty and how we can get in touch with our customers. That's a good one to look up as well. The whole thing about branding, loyalty, and expanding your customer knowledge. So we also want to look at data analytics. Like I mentioned, track our customers' behavior. Keep on researching our market. Keep on researching our competitors. Keep on researching our products. It's research, and that's going to bring out new innovation and opportunities as well. And then we want to build pricing into our growth strategy. Pricing is not a standalone decision. It should be integrated to a broader growth of the business. I've done an episode on scaling on August 24, and we talked about how to scale, what areas, and how we're going to bring our pricing and our value into scaling as well. And then we got to test, review, and refine. Always test, review, refine our pricing as well. It's not a one and done decision. It requires monitoring over time and constantly, for that matter. So I've said a lot, but it's essential to navigate a very competitive landscape with confidence. By understanding our cost, knowing our customers, choosing the right model, and making data-informed decisions, we can set prices that serve our business today and empower its growth tomorrow. Okay, so pricing may not be the first hurdles you encounter, but with a clear, flexible approach, it can become one of your most powerful tools for building a resilient, profitable business. That will end this discussion for today. Over the last few weeks, you heard me saying a lot about something big that is coming. Next week, I'm going to tell you all about a product that I will launch on January the 13th in 2025. Now, that product is going to be about gaining more clarity in your business, how business clarity can bring you power. And a definite way to get it is to make sure that you have a good understanding of your business numbers, but also have a very good holistic view of your business. However, there is another product I'm also launching on the 13th of January next year, and that is online workshop, and I'm going to call it Mastering Your Pricing. It will be very much in line with what I talked to today, but it's going to be quite a deep dive into confidently price your products by mastering your costings, your value delivering, and your competitive positioning. Take what I've said today. If you're going to combine with that workshop that I'm going to deliver, which is going to be really very good value for money, you will be very much on your way to become a very confident price maker. Hit me up through the show notes, my website, or on social if you are keen to grab an early bird special on this program. Okay, that is me for today. Johan signing off as your number man. Thanks for listening. Ciao.